So, the new year is upon us, and we're going to be getting new cards coming to Master Duel. And if you're a new player coming in, or just simply don't know what you should be spending your hard-earned CP on, then hey, get on over here. It better not be See You Craft Nib, or anything from Labyrinth. I have some advice for you, kid. Considering that Therion, Tyr, Sprite, and Bystials are some of the big names coming out this year, it can be a bit daunting thinking about the chaos to come. You will lose, as will I. There are many misplays to come, and anguish knowing you asked the wrong thing and now they're going +3 and can play through quite literally any disruption you put out. So, what would be some good cards to craft in anticipation of it all? What are some good cards that can even help me out now? Aside from your Ash Blossom, Maxi, and Imperm, what else can be good? Now, some of these cards can help your deck and fit into it, but sometimes it may feel weird and that you're just jamming it in. So, to avoid that, try and think about what your deck is strong against and define its weakness. Look at what is running around when you duel and take note of it. That will help you come to some conclusions as well. Here, I'm going to list what I think are good cards that should be crafted in preparation for the future and to help boost your deck's power. Starting off, I'm going to talk about Dharc, the Dharc Charmer Gloomy. Dharc is a card that will soon be relevant and is relevant due to how many dark monsters there are and decks that use them. He is especially powerful because of his effect as a charmer to special summon a matching attribute monster, Dharc in this case, from your opponent's graveyard to your side of the field. This may not sound good right now, but let's look at what Dharc can do for you exactly. He is a Link 2 monster with the requirement of 1 Dharc plus another monster to summon him. Once Dharc and a special summon monster is on the field, you can summon Nightmare Unicorn as a strong option to spin something on the field. If you cannot use your normal summon and still bring out Dharc, you can use that special summon monster from your opponent's graveyard and bring out IP Masqurana. This will provide protection for either your Link 3 or Link 4 access code talker, Nightmare Griffin, or Avermax. Since we're talking about IP Masqurana, let's talk about her next. IP Masqurana is a card that forces your opponent to make a choice. How do I remove this card? The reason being is that if you attempt to leave your main phase, ideally main phase 1, IP Masqurana can as a quick effect send materials on your side of the field, including herself, to the graveyard for a Link summon. Once that monster is summoned, it gains protection from destruction effects. With the requirement of having 2 non-Link monsters for its summon, IP Masqurana is easy to summon out. It is an incredibly flexible card which can drastically alter the game state once its effect is resolved. Combo decks rely on IP and tend to summon it in their plays to plan for turn 3 and attempt to end the game on their turn. The choice of Link monsters you can summon is quite large. Some popular cards that IP go into are Access Code Talker, Appaloosa, Avermax, Nightmare Unicorn, and Topologic Zerberus. The reason why IP sees so much play is because it can either shut down your opponent's plays or force them to target her and waste resources. By doing so, IP is a card that simply cannot be ignored once it's on the field. It is important to choose which Link monster to summon, as that can break the board for you or provide you with another turn. Next, we're going to be talking about Dark Ruler No More. This spell card reads, negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls till the end of this turn. Also, for the rest of this turn after this card resolves, your opponent takes no damage. Neither player can activate monster effects in response to this card's activation. The important part of this card's text is the last line, which reads, neither player can activate monster effects in response to this card's activation. This means that cards like Baron the Floor, Totally Awesome, and Hope Harbinger cannot activate their effects to negate Dark Ruler No More. Upon going second, activating Dark Ruler No More can shut down your opponent's monsters, allowing you to act freely through their monster negates and proceed with your turn. You would still have to worry about their back row or cards in their hand if they have any. Dark Ruler as a board breaker is quite strong. Shutting down your opponent's monster effects can go a long way in one turn, even more so if you have ways to wipe their boss monsters and gain additional advantage. Okay, this card is a bit confusing, so let's try to work through it. Small World is a card that lets you search for effectively anything in your deck as a starter or extender for only going -1. It reads, reveal one monster in your hand. Choose one monster from your deck that has exactly one of the same type, attribute, level, attack, or defense, and banish the revealed monster from your hand face down. Then add from the deck to your hand one monster that has exactly one of the same type, attribute, level, attack, or defense as the monster chosen from your deck, and banish the card chosen from your deck face down. You can only activate one Small World per turn. So, what does that even mean besides a confusing wall of text? Well, I'm going to explain it as to how I understand it. We will use X as the card revealed from their hand, Y as the bridge/card revealed from the deck, and Z as the card added from the deck. So, Small World reads, reveal X card from the hand and Y from the deck, then add Z from deck to hand. Here comes the confusing part, the stat requirements that have to be met. Let's go back to the XYZ example. X and Y can only have one common stat, while Y and Z can only have one common stat. However, if you noticed, X and Z have no conditional stipulations. What this means is that not having any stipulations as to how this card works makes it extremely powerful. For a -1, it offsets itself by adding any key card you would need. But top deck, if this card is so powerful, why doesn't every deck run it? Well, Small World truly shines in decks that lack searchability. A deck like Branded Despia or Sword Soul wouldn't run Small World because they can effectively search out any card that they want from their deck as it's built in. An example of a deck that would use Small World would be Madolche. Let's say that you want to get to Pendicacer, you would reveal Messengelato from hand and have Hoop Cake act as the bridge. That's a normal case used for Small World. But do you want to know a secret when it comes to Small World? If you're using a Dharc focused deck, you can add DD Crow to your deck and it will always act as a bridge for the Dharc monster that you're trying to search out. Because it's a Dharc monster, it will search for a Dharc monster. Now on the other hand, in a really funny yet extreme and excessive case used for Small World, you can use it in Sword Soul. If you currently control Sheng Ying and activate Small World and want to search out Mo Yi, you can have Ashuna be the bridge and Adhara be the card revealed in hand. This would then trigger Sheng Ying's effect to banish one card each from your opponent's field and graveyard. Understanding how to use Small World can truly have a heavy impact on your deck and performance. As a going second card that mainly sees use in a side deck, it really matches a card that can win you the game at times by simply playing it. Banishing all of your opponent's cards face down equal to how many cards you control, which will ideally be 1, since evenly matched counts itself as a card, is an effect that not only breaks their board but sets up your main phase too, makes them scramble for a follow-up play, and secures your line of play, if you have any. Even if you just activate evenly matched without having any plays whatsoever, it's still completely viable to do so, which can be done from the hand at the end of the battle phase. This method can give you a turn to draw your starter to begin your plays or more depending on what your opponent does. It does double as a board breaker and stalling tool that can put a brief pause on the game. In a format where even on your turn, your opponent can interact with monster effects to attempt to disrupt your plays with cards like Baron the Floor or IP, Triple Tactics Talent can be a card that can save you some pain. As long as your opponent has activated a monster effect during your main phase, this turn you can draw 2 cards, take control of one monster your opponent controls until the end phase, look at your opponent's hand and choose one card from it to shuffle into the deck. An unsuspecting opponent that will ash one of your cards can in fact be punished by tactics. This card works going first and second as cards like Max C and any of the Ghost Girls will trigger it. Of course, which effect you want to use depends on the situation and what you think will be best. Either choice you make will be a helpful one. Doubling as a removal for face-up spell trap cards on the field, once it hits the graveyard, Galaxy Cyclone acts as a 2-for-1 removal spell. First, you can activate it to remove one set spell or trap as its first effect, but the secondary effect of removing a face-up spell trap is pretty good. Unfortunately, it can be a rather slow card due to its stronger effect of targeting a face-up spell card being tied to it being in the graveyard. You can dump this card as cost for a discard effect to speed it up and make use of it sooner. Alternatively, you can use a card like Cosmic Cyclone, since that card allows you to banish a spell or trap for only 1,000 life points. Both of these cards are good at removal. However, Cosmic Cyclone has the edge since it can do the secondary effect of Galaxy Cyclone, but just instant, and it's an instant speed spell that banishes. Almost every deck has a monster or a couple of monsters that have effects that trigger when they are in the grave. Why not speed up that process with Foolish Burial, as it can send one monster from your main deck to the grave once per turn. A lot of decks can benefit from this type of effect, like Despia, Drytron, Fire Brigade, Phantom Knights, etc. Either send Tragedy to search for a Looper, send Kit for Nerval, and Gamma for Extension. Some of these are uses for Foolish. It's a toolbox card that helps out a lot with extending your play. As the second to last card, let's talk about a card that's going to be thrown around and used heavily in the coming months as being Abyss Dweller. With more and more cards interacting with the graveyard, Abyss Dweller is an ideal way to shut down graveyard plays as it acts as a one-sided floodgate. Its main effect, once per turn, as a quick effect, you can detach one material from this card. Your opponent cannot activate any card effects in their graveyard this turn. Activating this during the draw phase can functionally shut down your opponent from making their full plays. You will mainly see this effect shine when Tear and Sprite gets released, but for now, what it can do is slow down / negate plays for grass decks and any deck that relies on their graveyard heavily. Think of it like a Necro Valley type of floodgate. As the last card that I have for you today, we're going to take a look at Dimension Shifter. Typically used in Flu, Dimension Shifter is honestly a busted card, as its lingering effect is one of the strongest in the game that can aid road decks so they can have a chance to prosper. As a quick effect, you can send it from your hand to the graveyard, but only if you have no cards in your graveyard. When it resolves, any card sent to the graveyard until your next turn will be banished instead. So for 2 whole turns, your opponent cannot access the graveyard, and as a Macrocosmos effect, it's just superior in every way, as you can use it on your opponent's turn as well. However, there is a downside. Not every deck can run this card, unfortunately, because unlike Abyss Dweller, being a one-sided floodgate that locks your opponent out of their graveyard, Dimension Shifter locks you out of your own graveyard as well. If you can play around this strategy and use it to your advantage, it will make a superb going second and even first card. Some decks that take advantage of this strategy are Zodiac, since they're going second list, Weather Painters because they don't care if their monsters get banished, in fact that's a plus for them, and Mutant. Shifter is the hardest sell on this list, I would say, but you can't deny its power and impact that it has on the meta. If your deck can run Shifter in some capacity, then it will be an ad that would make the top deck struggle when it's used, leaving you in a potentially winning state to them outright surrendering once it's been used. Alright, and that's the list of suggestions that I have for you all today. If you have any, let me know down below in the comment section and we can discuss what else will be good crafts. As a bonus, here are some honorable mentions. Super Polymerization, Baron the Floor, Potted Desires, Fairy Tale Snow, and Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. With that, I'm going to be focusing on a beginner's guide for 2023 Master Duel. Hopefully you found this list helpful, and stay tuned for more content.